Hi there, this is Chief Triple Eight, also known as Keith. Just doing a reply to Kalelprimes old school versus new school question. And I think it's fantastic. I think first of all, the Talk Transformers topic itself, I think is a really good idea because it kind of diversifies. Like he says, there are millions of people, thousands of people on YouTube right now doing reviews, and it's just something a bit different, and it's enjoyable as well. I think it makes it more entertaining for us Transformers fans who aren't stuck to one era of Transformers, such as whether it be G1, Beast Wars, and so on. Now, I myself, very similar to Kalelprime, I grew up on G1. So, to me personally, G1 is closest to my heart of all the Transformers reincarnations. But however, I'm more open-minded. To me, personally myself, Beast Wars killed off Transformers for me after Generation 2. Towards the end of G1, it was getting a bit disappointing. Then a few G2 figures came out, which were pretty good. But then I kind of grew out. We had issues like the looks, the storyline, the comics. Everything was going downhill. It was a dying cause. And then obviously Beast Wars came out, and I wasn't too keen on Beast Wars in terms of the figures wise. And I don't think we had Beast Wars and the animation come out in the UK until a little bit later on after the toy release. So I think it was a reinforcement for myself anyway for G1, because you had the toys, you had the comic books, and you had the animation as well. So when the animation died off, when I grew up in a small little town in Cornwall, so in terms of access to Transformers and storylines, the only thing I had was the comic books as well as the animation. So when the animation died off, all I had was the comic books, and I followed them straight through right to the end. And then I kind of lost it then, and it was actually Robots in Disguise that got me back into Transformers. I did watch Beast Wars for a part, but I actually never went out to buy the figures because I was really intrigued by the storyline of Beast Wars, and it is fantastic. It wasn't until that hint of crossover when the Beast Wars actually went into the Ark and found the original Transformers. That's what kicked me back in. Was the sorry, I just had a bit of a coughing fit, so I had to cut off there and get a drink. But anyhow, as I was saying, with the Beast Wars and so forth, it kind of got me back into Transformers again. But Beast Wars got me back into Generation 1, so it kind of reunited a fuse. And I think for me personally, again, Transformers the movie always stuck in my mind, no matter what. It was kind of imprinted into my mind. So when they linked Beast Wars back to Generation 1, that's when I thought, hey, this is pretty good. Then there is some sort of continuity into the story arc. So I then again went back into Generation 1, as I said, and started collecting again, but didn't really get into Beast Wars that much in terms of the figures wise, but I did have all the box sets for Beast Wars when they were available. So I said the storyline was fantastic. Then again it changed to RID. Now RID to me was much more closer to my childhood because I also grew up on the Japanese Master Force and Victory series. So in terms of the humour, it's very typical Japanese style humour, especially with like Kalelprime was saying, with the I can't remember what they're called now. It's Overbite or Shark Bite, whatever his name was. You've always got to have that comic character in there, and that kind of again reignited me again. By this time, I can't remember what year it was, 2000 or whatever it was. that again sparked my interest, and I went out and bought, the Optimus Prime figures. To me, it was like Beast Wars was a dark period in terms of in my mind. I think, well, you can't have Beast as Transformers. They were vehicles. It didn't make sense. They're metallic, but they're going to have organic shells, and it just didn't make sense to me. But then again, it continued and so forth and so forth. But the way I look at it, if it wasn't for G1, and the long history of G1, you wouldn't have the continued storyline straight up to animated. And that's why I like animated, because animated pleases everyone, regardless whether it's Beast Wars, G1, and so forth. I mean, those two seem to be the cornerstone in a lot of the story arcs, whether it be animated or Cybertron and so forth. There's always going to be some element of the previous incarnation, such as when we transferred from RID into I can't remember what it's called now. Not Energon. When we changed over, yet again you had some of the original characters before they evolved again to new characters. So when you had this argument, old school versus new school will always have that element of old school in there. So you can't have one without the other. So if you look at story arc wise, story wise in terms of animation, in terms of comic books, novels, so forth, have evolved dramatically, and plus you've got this whole history to look at, which you didn't have in Generation 1. Generation 1, they had a lot more to play with in that aspect, because there was no history to it. You could literally make it up as you go along. Whereas with the other newer designs, such as, like I said, animated, again, if episode 1 animated, straight away throw back to Generation 1 with the old archive videos in there, which I thought was great, because even though there's no question about it, it is oriented around children. However, it acknowledges the older fans as well. So I think my main argument, I suppose, is you can't have one without the other. That's pretty much it, really. That's my own personal thought. It's a mixture of you can't have one without the other, as well as personal feelings as well. Because to me, when I was a kid growing up, Transformers took me to a completely different place. There was nothing else around like it apart from GoBots, but in terms of the storylines, the arcs, and so forth, there was nothing like it. And I suppose even nowadays, if you look at what's available, if you look at the main selling lines, things like Power Rangers, Ben 10, I've got a really dry throat at the moment. All of those current cartoons, the Transformers still stands unique amongst other things. And the crossovers. Look at the crossovers. You've got Star Wars Transformers crossovers. You've got New Avengers crossovers. G.I. Joe crossover. Everything crossing over into Transformers. So again, that's obviously coming back into G1. And obviously helped by things like the IDW comic books and so forth, and the new Transformers New Avengers crossover as well. So I don't really look at it as old school versus new school. I look at it as one continuation, one evolvement, one to another. As you would get with any mechanical item, a PC or what have you, PCs are upgradable with technology. And you are seeing that in terms of technology for the toys, in terms of the way the stories are written. It's much more in depth. The way characters are written. 20 years ago, if you were to pick up a G1 comic book, and you were to pick up something like IDW now, written by the same guy, Simon Furman, the same guy's written the same storyline, yet it's evolved so much, and I think that speaks volumes. So yeah, so that's probably my little rant anyway. So this is Chief 88888 logging off.